Hi friends, welcome to my channel Soulful Spinning. This is my little tiny channel on YouTube where I talk about all things fiber related, mainly spinning and knitting and everything woolly. I hope this finds you well. It's Leap Day today. It's the 29th of February, a day we only get every 4 years. So I thought it was a good day to sit down and have a little chat, tell you what I've been up to. I've got spinning, I've got knitting, I've got some fiber prep, I've got a finished object, I've got a couple of books I want to talk about, and I want to follow up on a cardigan that I showcased in my last episode. I wanted to talk a little bit about how my hand-spun yarn wore, how the garment is wearing, and some thoughts on sweater fit. Being a relatively new sweater knitter, I have a lot to learn, and yeah, I'm on a journey to learn about sweater knitting. So I've got my cup of coffee. I know I went down the rabbit hole of Reddit one afternoon where people talk about all their pet peeves about knitting podcasts, and I pretty much do them all. So, but anyway, I love that you're here. I love that you choose to spend time with me, and I love connecting with you down in the comments below or on Instagram. Did I tell you my name? My name is Lisa, and I'm coming to you from the Midwest of the Chicagoland area. All right, so let's talk about, let's do FOs first in the true podcast fashion. I finished a Sophie shawl. It's a pattern by Petite Knit, and it was made out of cashmere yarn. And I'm just going to put it on my, try to avoid my microphone. So I thank the viewer who recommended the pattern for this precious yarn I had in my stash. I had 4 50-gram balls of some beautiful 4-ply cashmere yarn. It was cream colored. It's just been sitting in my stash for more than 10 years. And so I thought it was time I used it. So I made the Sophie shawl. It's wonderfully soft. I think it was a very high quality cashmere. Because some cashmeres can still have some of the guard hairs in there, and they can be a bit prickly, ironically, for such a fine fiber. But this is gloriously soft. I don't even want to take it off. I've been wearing it quite a lot. It's getting fuzzy, but it is not pilling at all. But I am treating it very tenderly. Sometimes with my scarves, you know, I'll stuff them into my sleeve of my coat and, you know, hang it on a rack. I'm trying to be kind of careful with this because it's so, it's such a precious fiber. Love the pattern. Let's see some details. I'll show it to you up close while I'm talking. Let's see. I knit it on a US 10, which is, I believe, a 5.5 millimeter needle, except the tails. When I did the tails one size smaller on an 8. An 8 is a 5 millimeter. 8, I started on an 8. 8 is a 5 millimeter. 9 is 5.5. 6 is 10. I did it on a size 10. But I used a size 8 for the beginning. I started with the size 8 needle as recommended by the pattern, and it was a little tight. So then I went to a 6 millimeter needle for the body, and I made the smallest size in the pattern, increasing to, I increased to 48 stitches. And I weighed my yarn, so I had 4 balls. And when I was almost done with my second ball, I started the decreases. But at the end of the pattern, I started running out of yarn, which I thought was really strange. I just thought maybe the knit front and back you do on the increase side uses less yarn than the slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over on the decrease. I mean, it shouldn't, right? But I was running a little low, and I went by weight too. I weighed the balls of yarn. So I did go down to I had to go down to a smaller needle again, which was a good thing. And I had about like this much, this much yarn left. So it's really not, I would say it's a scarf. It's a large scarf. I wouldn't say it's a shawl. It's a very common, popular construction now. There's lots and lots of patterns that have this shape. As a matter of fact, I watched a podcast yesterday where a young knitter went over all like Sophie scarf alternatives. I'll link that below. She had some beautiful, beautiful designs that she showcased that have the same shape, but they're slightly, you know, that are different, incorporate different patterns and so on. So yeah, so you can wear it, I suppose. You can wear it as a shawl. You could even tie it in the back, kind of like a Jane Eyre style. But yeah, overall, I'm really, really happy with it. And I think it is a lovely pattern, and I do recommend it. So that's my only finished object. I know, it's been a month, and you think I should have more to show, but I don't. My knitting mojo kind of tanked a little bit after I finished the 2 Felix cardigans. I finished 2 of them, and I sort of, my knitting mojo just kind of, you know, puttered out. But it's back again, and hence why I'm sitting here talking to you people. So that's my only finished object. And let's talk about works in progress. I'll put this over here by the orchid. So, as many knitters and creators do around the turn of the year, they start to sort of assess, you know, what they've done in the past, what's still on their needles, you know, what are the long languishing whips that you either decide to frog or finish or repair. And I found one, and this was, let me see if I can show this to you without dropping a bunch of stitches. So this is my Skogafjell. This is a pattern by Diana Walla for Tolt, and it's an Icelandic construction. It started with the bottom ribbing and knit up to the armholes. And then you also knit the sleeves as 2 separate tubes. I did that first, I think. And then you join the tube that is the body with the sleeves. What you do is you put a set number of stitches on a holder here on the body, and then you do that same number of stitches on the sleeve. And so you can see that I have just a gap here that's going to need to be closed up. So I'm going to pause here because my son's home for lunch, and I'll be back in half an hour. Works local, so he's able to come home for lunch, which is lovely. It's nice to see him. So before I was interrupted, of course you won't know if I was interrupted or not, will you? Anywho, I was talking about my Skogafjell jumper. Whoopsie. Nice thing about Icelandic wool, and this is Icelandic Letlopi, is if your needles come out, the stitches just stay where they're not going anywhere. They don't slip down or anything. So here is the front of my sweater. Let me show you a little bit up close, the color work. I'm almost done. I'm actually almost done. I'm on row 31 of 35 rows of the chart. And this is what the jumper looks like. It's by Diana Walla. And it's an Icelandic style that starts at the bottom with ribbing, and then you work your way up. And my colors are these 3 shades of Letlopi. I have to say I was so grateful that the weather got cold again, because in Chicago area we were having unseasonably warm temperatures. and it was like 70 degrees. I'm like, I don't want to work on an Icelandic sweater when it's 70, but it's back to like normal winter weather. So these are the three colors. This brown is hazel heather. The gray is oatmeal heather, which is really kind of like the color of my hair. And the green is lagoon heather. So I've got a cool shade with the warm brown and then the neutral. And I actually, it was the only Lopi I have on hand. And I had another option, like a golden heather that was a real muted, grayed out gold. And it just didn't think it looked very, very nice. So I went with this. And again, a viewer mentioned something. I learned so much from you. I really appreciate your feedback. I know there's so many experienced knitters out there, and I really value your advice and feedback. So I do thank you for that. So here's the sweater. It's huge, you guys. It's huge. What size am I making? That's not the pattern. I am making the 4th size, which is supposed to be 43.5 to give 2 to 4 inches of ease. My bust is 38. So I have a feeling I should have made the size C with a little bit less ease. And then the body is knit to 18 inches for the 4th size. The smallest size, she recommends you knit the body to 16.25 inches or 41.5 centimeters. And the largest size is 18.5 inches or 47 centimeters. I did do the 18. I'm on the taller than average spectrum. I'm 5'7", 7-ish. But I do feel, stand up here, that is going to be, it's going to come down, I think, about 1/3 of the way down my thighs. Somebody actually mentioned that in the last episode. Are you sure you want to knit it to 18 inches? And I have made a couple of other pullovers and they've ended up too short, you know, because as you wear it and raise your arms and such, you need that extra length. So we'll see. I should have it done very soon, and I can go outside and give you a modeling session with this. Well, maybe before I put the video up, I'll have it done and I can insert that. But yeah, so I have this all done. After I finish the yoke, all I have to do is Kitchener the arms. And it's so funny, you guys. I had the body knit to exactly here. And I could tell because it had been so long, you might not be able to see it here. It had been so long in a bag waiting to be finished. And the stitches were, you know, on the cable, and I think they got a little distorted, and also my gauge might have changed between now and a couple years ago when I started the sweater. But I think wool is such a forgiving fabric. I think it's going to block out just fine. I do hope that it softens a wee bit because it does feel, it's very light, and I'm sure it's going to be very warm, but it's definitely, for me, it's not next to skin. So there you go. So yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'll have another sweater finished. So that's my Skogafjell. So the other active works in progress, knitting-wise, are this Sophie scarf. So I've decided to make a Sophie scarf for my sister, my big sister. My big sister, yeah, I think she just turned 73, and we're going to meet for lunch in another week or so, and I'm going to give this to her for her birthday. This is about half the length that it's going to end up being. I've increased every 8 rows until I arrived at 35 stitches. And then I starting the decreases. I'm reserving a little more than half the yarn, about, a little more than half the yarn, like 55% of the yarn left for the second half, because in the Sophie shawl, it seemed like I was running out at the end. So hopefully I won't have to play the so-called proverbial yarn chicken. And I'll give that to her. This yarn is from Lisa Souza Dye Works. It's in the St. Valentine's colorway. And I picked it up. She had a deep discount on this cashmere yarn, and it's really beautiful and soft, super fine. 200 yards approximately for 50 grams. This was 55 grams. The only thing is red dye will sometimes do. It is coming off on my hands when I knit it. Not a lot, but after I'm done knitting with it, I have red residual dye on my hands, and then I wash my hands, it comes off. So I've got a couple of suggestions. I'll probably try to set it with vinegar rinse after I wash it, and hopefully it will wash clear, because I'd hate for it to transfer to a light article of clothing. So we'll see how that all pans out. What else do I have to say? I'm knitting this on US 6, which is a 4mm needle, and I'm knitting these with my new set of, or fairly new set of Lantern Moon interchangeables, and they have a beautiful cord. And the set comes with two kinds of cords. One is a swivel. This one's a swivel cord, so the needle turns, which is nice as you're knitting. You're not having to adjust your needles, your cord so much. And I got the small set. It came in a, I'll go run and get it. This is the case that I chose. They had a variety of sets. They're made in India, I think. This is, I think it's a silk. It looks like it's Dupani silk, and it's got some embroidery on there. Probably machine embroidery. And in here I have my size 10 fixed needles. And these are the needles here. So they came in a 3.25, a US 3, a 3.75, a US 5, a US 6, which is a 4, and then a 4.5, which is a 7. And this is the size 5mm or US 8. And yeah, it came with 4 cords, so 2 different sizes. 2 of each, and then one of the cords swivels and the other one does not. And what I really love about this is the tightening tool that came with it. It looks like this. It totally beats the little T-pin you get with knit picks. And then this came with 2 of those, and the stoppers are just beautiful. They're these wooden stoppers. So yeah, really pretty set. I got these before Christmas. I might have shown these to you before, but you might be new here, so forgive me if I repeat. Yeah, and I'm just, my fixed Lantern Moons, I'm just keeping in there for safekeeping, and super happy with this set of needles. I really enjoy wooden needles. Oh yeah, speaking of needles, I forgot to mention here, for my Skogafjell, I'm knitting the yoke with 1 size bigger, using the suggested needle size in the pattern. I'm using a size 9 for the color work, and I think I used a size 8. So I used whatever the US equivalents are. This is, yeah, this is a 9. And these are ginger, they're a laminated. They're the ginger needles, the ginger set, which are also very nice. So that's one of my works in progress, and I suspect that if I could really finish this in a day. It's extremely little. It's like, because I was knitting it, and I'm like, I better weigh my yarn. And I weighed my yarn, I was already halfway done. So this won't take any time at all to finish. And I have 2 other colors of this. I'm going to make 2 more scarves, Sophie scarves out of cashmere that I picked up from Lisa Souza. This one is the Praying Mantis colorway, which, like, look at that, chartreuse green. And then this one is Persephone. And yeah, I think I'm going to give this one to my sister, Stephanie. And this one, I don't know. I might keep it for myself or give it to my niece. I think it would look really pretty with her dark hair. So yes, little Sophie scarves are such a nice little project to have with you at night or whatever. Very nice. All right, so that was my knitting Skogafjell Sophie scarf. I have put on a couple of rows with my Traveler shawl, a pattern by Andrea Mowry that she designed for handspun yarn, but I'm using a Noro yarn for this. I'll show you my progress so far. This is the right side, though it's very, very reversible. So I'm using 2 different colorways. It's in the Tsubabe, I can never say it right, Tsubame. It's a Japanese yarn by Noro. And I'm using 2 different colors. I'm using this, which I think is color 8, and this, which I believe is color 22. So very, very similar. They both have the earth tone golds and greens and browns, but this one has those pops of brighter magenta, fuchsia color, and gold. And I'm just alternating whenever I feel like it. Yeah, I hadn't worked on this for a while, but I picked this up because I needed to bring something to Knit Group that wasn't my Skogafjell, which I didn't want to carry with me, and wasn't my red Sophie scarf because I didn't have a scale with me. So I need to get like a miniature scale to have in my knitting bag. So yeah, I like it. It's a very pretty pattern, and the yarn is, it's a blend of silk and wool and cotton. No. I think it's silk, wool, and a little bit of viscose or polyamide, you know, synthetic fiber. But really, it's going to be nice for the summer. It has that sort of cottony feel, but the wool gives it the nice spring to it that makes a pleasant knitting experience. So, yes, I don't have project bags per se. I've never actually purchased a knitting bag, a knitting project bag from any vendors whatsoever. Yeah, right, me, the shopper, you know, the Etsy queen. Have not done that. But I am using this, I repurposed this purse. This was a hand-woven purse I picked up at an art festival. And I don't know if the information is in here. Here's the tag. Acton Creative. Acton Creative, and it's a wool suiting, a men's suiting material on the inside, and then a beautiful plain, I think it's just a plain weave on the outside. So yeah, it makes a really nice knitting bag. How about you? Do you have special knitting bags that you've purchased, or do you just sort of, you know, use other things? Like I'll use a cosmetics bag, shopping bag. I always feel like, you know, why spend $30, $40, $60 on a bag when I could spend that on yarn? So yes, I'm pretty much been focusing on just a few projects in the hopes that I will follow through and get things done. All right, what else? Before we leave knitting and moving on to spinning and books, I did want to mention my next sweater project. So my next sweater project is a jumper pullover by Jennifer Steingass, and it's called Celosia. And I'm going to make it out of this yarn from Deep Stash. This is a Manos del Uruguay silk blend. 70% extra fine merino and 30% silk. It's 150 yards in a 50 gram skein, or 135 meters. So I've got the blue. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 6 of these. I purchased this some time ago with no particular plan when I was stashing yarn. I haven't been stashing yarn too much this year so far. I hope I can keep doing that. I will keep doing that. So here's the body of the sweater. And I think I'm going to take a page out of Isabelle Duchatel's channel. No, it's not Duchatel. Yeah, I'll put her name down below. I love her channel. She does a weekly podcast. Like if you want somebody that really routinely puts out content every week, I highly recommend her channel. She's a lovely and delightful knitter. And I think I'm going to take a page out of her book and make a little kerchief as a swatch. So what she does is, in her French way, chic way, she makes these little scarves to wear around her neck, and they serve 2 purposes: keep her neck warm, but also serve as a swatch. And I suppose if you run out of yarn, you could always undo it. And then, so that's going to be the body. And then the color work motif is going to be this white yarn here, this cream natural color. It's natural. It's Malabrigo, silky merino. I think this is it's a 51% silk, 49% merino, and it's 50 grams, 150 yards. So it's the same yardage, and I have plenty. I mean, I probably end up using 1 for the color work. So celosia is a beautiful flower. I have had them in my garden before, and the color work, I have fiber and yarn everywhere. The color work resembles the celosia, or celosia as my husband says, flower. And I thought this would be nice for the spring and summer because it's lightweight and soft yarn. And yeah, I'm keeping it in this heavy bag here. And I can't wait to cast that on. That's definitely going to be my next jumper. It's a top-down circular yoke. And I'm going to experiment with some sizing. So for that particular sweater, I am going to knit the size B, which is my bust measurement. So that would be 0 ease. And I'm going to cast on, and then I'm going to try it on and see if I need to make adjustments in the body to fit me. But I found that the pattern looked very flattering on a lot of body shapes, and I really preferred those that were slightly more fitted. They just looked very neat and very pretty. So normally I would go with the 40, right, which is a couple inches bigger than my bust measurement, but I'm going to take the advice of Maggie Righetti, she's the author of the book that I'm going to showcase in my books from my shelf section, and I'm going to knit with 0 ease here. I'll talk more about what she has to say about ease a little bit later. So yeah, I'm going to be casting that on as soon as I finish the Skogafjell. But I can't put this down now. I have to finish this now before it gets too hot. So yeah, that's my future knit. It's a beautiful little pattern. It has, some of the makers have just done short sleeves, little cap sleeves. I was thinking of doing 3/4 length sleeves, which I really enjoy. So we'll see, but I'm pretty excited about that, about my next sweater project. All right, so that's all the knitting content I have for you. All right, let's talk about spinning. So a couple weeks ago, I showcased some fiber that I purchased from Fleeceful Farm on Etsy. This is a 50-50 blend of baby doll Southdown and alpaca fiber. And I originally purchased this to make socks for Carrie's sock spin-along. And I spun up a little sample, and I spun it up using a short, a continuous backward worsted style draw. I found I was having a little trouble maintaining a consistent thickness to the yarn. I think that has to do with the Southdown being much shorter, a little bit shorter than the alpaca. So I've taken a different approach. I'm actually now carding up the fiber into these little Rolags and doing a true woolen spun yarn, but I have decided that the yarn is way too, it's too soft for socks. I think it would last 5 minutes on my feet before I started wearing out the bottom of the sock. So I have 8 ounces of this, so I'm going to spin it up, and I'm going to make the Pathways shawl by Mayu KP. I purchased her Textures Contrasts book. I'll put a little picture of the pattern right here. I think it'll be perfect for that. Even though it's a 2-ply, I think the woolen spun nature of the yarn, plus the Southdown is a very round and it has a spiral crimp. I think it'll show the cables nicely. So that's my plan. I think I'm going to make a shawl with this yarn rather than socks. So these are some of the Rolags that I've made out of the roving. And I'll insert some video here of how I'm doing that, making my little Rolags with my hand cards. So I'm using these carders. They're my shocked carders. They're 112 TPI. That means tines per inch. And that's a measurement of the carding cloth here on the carders. So, you know, you can get carders anywhere from 90 TPIs to, you know, over 200 for like cotton and super fine fibers. So these are a nice all-around pair of cards. They're curved, which I like. Very easy to use, very ergonomic. So the first thing I do is I start with the braid here, and then I lay the fiber on, oops, excuse me, I lay the fiber on the carders here. I don't go all the way to the top. I go about an inch or so in, a centimeter or 2 in. I've got some blank spaces there, so I'm kind of trying to get an even layer, but not too much fiber on the carders. So, all right. This is what you would do with your fleece, too, if you were working from fleece. So now I'm going to take this carder and I'm going to start brushing the fiber from the tips here, like this, and kind of lifting it off, lifting it up as I go. And then I rock motion and takes all the fiber off of this card. So here's my fiber. Now if you were working with fleece, you'd probably want to repeat this process, but I have prepared fiber already. I'm just turning it into Rolags, so I'm going to leave it. Now I'm going to take the tip here to the heel of this carder, like so. See, the perpendicular. And then I'm going to take off the fiber like that. So it's a nice layer of fiber on the card, and it's not embedded in the teeth. So then I put it on my knee, and then I take this carder and I roll it into a Rolag. And there you go. And then I just lay the fluff onto the existing yarn, and maybe give it a little bit of a couple of worsted draws there just to get it, make sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm off to the races with my long draw. 1, 2, 3. I learned how to long draw spin from 2 YouTubers, Ruth McGregor. She has the one with the beautiful music. Watching her video many, many times over when I was a brand new spinner. And Longdraw James, watching him. He had a couple of excellent tutorials. He's a very young man who's like a spinning prodigy. Isn't he, Peaches? Yeah, so you're sort of just pulling out unspun yarn, and then you're using your 2 hands to pull them apart, attenuate the strands, and it turns it into yarn. Now, this always seemed like magic to me, but it isn't magic. It's just twist wants to go to thin spots because it's the path of least resistance. So when you pull out a lump, the twist, you can see it's going into the thin parts, and then before it gets twist locked, you attenuate these thicker bits to thinner, and then this twist distributes into those sections as well. So here we go. And by using this finger as a gatekeeper, you're controlling the amount of twist that you're letting in so things don't get all locked up. Yeah. It's just a feeling, really. You can start with short. You can just start here, build up some twist, pull out a lump, hold. Don't let the twist go into this unsupported. This is unsupported. Isn't even yarn yet, pre-yarn. And then let the twist go in as you attenuate. 1, 2, 3. Pull out your roving, and then you're always controlling how much twist is going into this yarn here. And that's how you long draw from Rolags. Flyback sample looks like. Now, of course, with woolen yarn, you have generally you have less twist in the singles than you would with worsted. And so when you go to ply, you want to ply it a little bit tighter than what the plyback sample is showing, because the strength from woolen yarn comes more from the plying. And there's our girl. Can you see her? Hey, you. Hey, girlfriend. Oh, it's Peaches. She's 15. we were just saying the other day that Peaches has a soul. You know, she's like a person in the household. We don't see her as a dog. She's a dear, dear girl. So as I was saying, the strength of the yarn comes in the plying. And you get this beautiful, springy, fluffy, warm yarn. So yeah, I'm trying not to disturb them because they're little pink, fluffy, delightful little clouds. They're two 50-gram bats that I carded up on my manual Clemis and Clemis carder. And this is an 80-20 blend of bond fleece and llama fiber. So the llama fiber that I'm using is from Shepherd's Textiles. They have an Etsy shop. Excuse me. The Shepherd's Textiles has an Etsy shop and also has a standalone web presence. So I wanted to show you, and this is what I learned from Carrie. Carrie strongly recommends that you use alpaca, or she prefers an alpaca blend in her socks as a strengthening agent. But she also recommends that the wool that you use and the add in the alpaca has approximately the same staple length. It makes the spinning a little bit easier, and I think it also makes probably for a more durable sock, durable yarn. So I'm going to show you, this is not dehaired llama. They intentionally do not dehair the llama, but according to the website, I think they measured it to be in the they did an independent micron measurement for the llama, and I think it was like in the mid-20s, which is pretty good. But you can see this is a staple length of the llama fiber. No crimp to speak of. You can see the guard hairs sticking out, but the guard hairs are quite soft. I suspect if you made yarn just out of this and you wore it around your neck, those guard hairs would prickle and maybe create some uncomfortable itchiness. But I just wanted to show you side by side, you know, what the two fibers look like. So this is the fawn llama, and this is the bond. The bond's been sitting in my stash. I should, you know, have a shot every time I say in my stash. But you know, what I'm doing is I'm just pulling apart, hand picking the locks, and creating a big, do a picking pass through my carder. So I pick all the fiber. This is just the bond after one pass through on my carder. So still lumps and bumps, and you can still see some of the lock structure in there. But that's what I did first. I first put the picked locks, hand-picked locks through the carder. And then I did 3 more passes, this combined with the llama. So I weighed out 40 grams of bond wool and 10 grams of the llama to get an 80-20 blend, percentage blend. And I think it's going to make a beautiful sock. I thought I'd mention how bond is related to Corriedale. I pulled this up on the internet here. So both Bond and Corriedale were developed in Australia. The Bond sheep were created in 1909. They're a dual-purpose breed for meat and wool, using Pepin Merinos and imported Lincoln Rams, mainly found in Southeast Australia. And I purchased my Bond fleece from Gleason's Fine Woolies. Joanna Gleason and her husband had imported some Bond Rams, or I think, into the country, and they, out in Colorado, were raising and selling their fiber. I don't know if she still is. I'll have to research that. But I have this one. I have this fawn one, and then I also have a real pretty Morit, which is a reddish brown. And I also have some white Bond that I purchased from her when I started spinning probably 6-7 years ago. There's no expiration date on wool, unless, critters get to it. So Pepin Merinos bred to Lincoln Rams, and then what they do is they do a series of crossbreeding until the breed comes back to more of its fine wool genetics, I believe. A long stapled, bright wool, big bulky wool, measuring 22 to 28 microns. I do find that the Bond has a little bit, it's different. In my experience, Corriedale is a little bit more springy. Of course, there's a wide variety within each breed. But I think the Bond almost reminds me of a fine Romney a little bit. But still has quite a bit of loft, but it has just a little bit more of a long wool characteristic, in my opinion, than the Corriedale that I've worked with. Now, the Corriedale sheep were developed in New Zealand and Australia in the 1800s by crossing Lincoln or Leicester Rams with Merino females. And they also did it in Australia, and Corriedales are widely popular and all over the world now. Again, a dual-purpose sheep. According to this website, the Oklahoma State Educational Breeds of Livestock site, they say that Corriedale produces high-ranging wool ranging from 24.5 to 31.5 microns. Staple length 3.5 to 6 inches. They were imported into the U.S. in 1914, and they are well adapted to farm flock situations. So that's my friend Carrie. That's her first. That was her main sheep that she bred, and she's now breeding fine wool Shetland wools. But I think that she might still have a Corriedale ewe or two in her flock, and she knows somebody who has Corriedale wool. So. Yeah, it's a beautiful wool, but I thought, well, I have this Bond fleece, which I would say, I don't know a lot about microns, but I've handled a lot of wools from like Polworth and Merino up to like coarser Cotswold wools, and I feel like this is really that medium wool feeling. So this is what I have so far with my Bond alpaca blend, my two Vermont spindles here. So I will ply this up as a sample skein, and then I'll probably take this 100 grams to my wheel and spin it up, because otherwise I'll never get the socks done. So I decided that I wanted to make my socks with two colors, and so I have decided to, let me get rid of this, put this here. I have decided to take some other wool that I had in my stash. This beautiful fleece here is, I think it's a Corriedale cross, if I'm not mistaken. And it's a pretty brown. And it's a very similar feeling to the Bond. Look at that crimp, though. You can really see that crimp. It's a little bit longer staple than my Bond, but it's this beautiful brown color. Here's another staple of that Corriedale wool. I think it's a Corrie Romney cross, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to blend that. I have four shades of Llama Fiber here on my table. I have this chocolate color. Here's our puppers. Hey, Peaches. I have this llama color. I bought this all from the same vendor, Shepherd's Textiles. I have a rose gray that I didn't take out of its package. And then I have the fawn, which you have already seen here. So I think I'm going to blend the darkest shade with my wool here. What do you think? This is the llama, and this is the wool. And I'm going to do the same 80-20 blend. And then I might do the heels, the cuffs, the toes, and the brown. Maybe a couple bands of color work in the sock, maybe around the ball of my foot. That's where I tend to wear out my socks, so maybe that will give it a little bit more strength. And I know Carrie does that too. She puts color work around her socks. And yeah, we'll see how they wear. I've got a lot of work to do. I probably won't get the socks completed within the time frame. And it's really just for fun. It's just a community building activity. It's not like, you know, there's a time frame. You could work on hand spun socks the whole year long, which I think is really a good idea. All right, the last thing I wanted to talk about is my sweater that I showed last time. So I showed this sweater. It's the Felix pullover. I'm going to put it on for you. I'm going to get my microphone here. It was out of hand spun. I made on my Major Craft Aura. And I made the size 2, and I got gauge. But what I noticed has happened, and this actually a viewer and a friend on Instagram, she was telling me that I should make a size smaller in my sweaters, that I'm knitting them too big. And look at my sleeve stretched. It is a Coopworth cross wool with bamboo. And so I am getting a lot of stretching and a drape in the fabric. Two things that could have mitigated that. Number one, knitting a smaller size, and number two, using a smaller gauge needle. So next time I make a sweater with singles yarn, I'm definitely going to knit it a little bit tighter gauge. And that'll help too with any pilling, which I am getting a little bit of pilling, but I don't think that's anything that's going to be a problem. But the main thing about this, and I think you can see it, it just has too much ease, and the collar is quite open. It's really nice and cozy and warm, and I'm going to get a lot of use out of it. But I do feel like my friend Ruth, she said you really should make a smaller size for your body and be more, yeah. So it got me thinking about ease in sweater construction. And so I went to my bookshelf and I found this book. It's Sweater Design in Plain English by Maggie Righetti, author of Knitting in Plain English, which I don't think I have that book, but I have this book. I think I picked this up when I first started knitting, and I was just going to town down the rabbit hole and picking up lots of books and so on. But this book is she's got some amazing information in here about knitting sweaters. Now, it was published in 1990, and more than 90% of the patterns in the book are in pieces. They're not a circular yoke. She has one design that's a circular yoke, but even the raglan sweater that she has in here is knit in pieces and then seamed together. So that part of that is probably not really applicable to me, but I wanted to give you a glance at the table of contents and give you a couple of insights that she's given me. So, overcoming your fear of failure, avoiding costly mistakes, getting new ideas, understanding the nature of yarn, understanding body shapes, 33, getting the right measurements, chapter 6. These two chapters were really useful. You know, getting the right marriage of fiber, fabric, and design, understanding the lingo of knitting, just you can see for yourself and read the table of contents. But she came from a sewing background, so a seamstress, sewist background where she would make clothing. And when you make clothing with fabric, you have to allow ease because typically you need the body to be able to move within the garment. And so she talked about one of her big points here in chapter 4 is that knits need less ease allowance. And I've been seeing this with some of my podcasters that I watch. A lot of times their sweaters to me and to them too seem too big. And designers seem to have extraordinary amounts of ease. So I mean, I know certain patterns, that's the design element, you know, this oversized sweater. But she claims that the forgiveness of the home knit fabric compensates for much ease allowance. And she talks about her boss. Her teacher employer said, when I first began to design sweaters, I absolutely could not accept what my teacher told me about how little ease was necessary. I argued silently, you've got to have room to breathe. Behind her back, I would sneak in a few inches of extra fabric with here and there for good measure. I did not and refused to understand the forgiveness of knits. Of course, once the garments were on the intended wearer's body, they were too big. And so she says, only a small amount of ease or added width is ever necessary. The fabric will expand and contract with the body. Often, no extra width is necessary at all. In fact, on some types of garments made with certain kinds of yarn, the garment must be planned to be 2 inches narrower than the actual body measurement. The forgiveness of the fabric will make the sweater conform to the body and will fit perfectly. She says, won't it look vulgar, I said. No, it will not look like a sweater girl advertisement of the 40s. It will look perfectly fitted, not too tight, not too loose. I took a lot of stubborn trial and error on my own to prove to myself she was absolutely right. And then she challenges you to ask somebody to show them their favorite sweater, you know, pullover sweater. Like ask a man, what's your favorite sweater? Have him put it on, then take it off, measure it, and you'll see that the measurement of the garment is not extraordinarily larger than the person wearing it. So I thought that was really very insightful and in keeping with what my friend had said, that I should knit a smaller size. Interesting, huh? She's got a great section in here about how to measure, where to measure, very, very particular information. She says it's very important that you do that. She gives advice about yarn. She says if a yarn is very elaborate, it's got lots of slubs or boucle or whatever, the simpler you should make your knit, and the simpler the yarn, the more elaborate. And then she mentioned that sometimes yarn that's sort of thick and thin and novelty can sometimes, when in a knitted stockinette, the lumpiness can sometimes go to the wrong side, and it actually looks smoother than you might first think. I thought that was interesting in keeping with my experience with handspun. If you have handspun and you think it's lumpy, bumpy, and everything, just knit with it, and you'll be surprised how beautiful the fabric is. Chapter 11 has a section on the choosing the most flattering design for the wearer. I feel this is sort of a touchy subject, and she says, no matter what body type or shape or size we have, some designs are going to flatter us more than others, and there's no reason not to always look our best. Looking our best is a matter of understanding which styles look most becoming on which bodies. But then, of course, she does say, when I was a teenager, I had a little booklet that described the ideal feminine figure and how to dress to make your own figure look as much as possible like the mythical form. That silly little book did me bundles of harm and a great deal of good. The harm was that I believed I was flawed and imperfect because I did not have an ideal body. The good was that at a very early age, I learned how to portray favorably to show off becomingly or advantageously any human body. So this section I thought was kind of funny. And she's very, Maggie has a real conversational grandma style of writing. Like she says, in reference that you can never be too thin or too rich. She says, horse feathers, of course you can be too thin. You can be skinny and anorexic to the point of discomfort, ill death, and health. All the media hype about being thin is just that, unreal mythology to make people buy specific products. So she talks about, you know, knitting to be comfortable, to be appropriate, which, you know, it was from 1990, so that was over 30 years ago. But anyway, she's got a bunch of interesting information in here on how you do striping and color blocking to emphasize or de-emphasize certain aspects of the form there. I feel like Amy Herzog in her books has picked up on this knit to flatter. So this section was really, really interesting to me. But she said something she said in the book. There's a saying in sewing that every woman's a size 8 from here to here, you know, from shoulder to shoulder. It's just the rest of the bodies can be quite different. And so when people are knitting for larger bodies, they don't need to proportionally make everything bigger. They need to very carefully do shaping techniques so that it fits properly around the shoulders here, from here to here, but then can fit the body comfortably and, you know, elegantly. So I thought that was really interesting, and I'm going to take that to heart in my next sweater, and I'm going to knit it with 0 ease, and I'm going to see how that works out. All right, so that's all the time I have for you today, friends. I hope this finds you well, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'd love to hear your comments below, and you can reach me at soulfulspinning@gmail.com or PM me on Instagram or leave a message below, and I'd love to hear from you. Have a great week, and we'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now.